Good evening, everyone. My name is Vincent Xavier. Welcome to another episode of Conversations That Count, a production of Fairfax County Republican Committee. Today, we have Pete Snyder with us, a leading candidate for governor of Virginia. Pete Snyder announced his candidacy for governor of the Commonwealth of Virginia in January 2021. Pete is a small business owner, a serial entrepreneur, an innovator, and a problem solver. Pete started his first company from his apartment when he was 26 years old. That company, New Media Strategies, became the world's first and one of the largest social media marketing companies. Under Pete's leadership, New Media Strategies was named by Inc. magazine as one of the 500 fastest growing companies in America for 3 years in a row. Pete also built an award-winning corporate culture as both Washingtonian Magazine and Washington Business Journal named New Media Strategies one of the area's best places to work. Snyder was honored by Fortune Small Business for his innovative management style when they named him one of the best bosses in America. Later, Pete founded Disruptor Capital, an angel capital investment firm focused on funding and growing disruptive technologies, ideas for entrepreneurs. A true champion of small businesses. During the onset of this horrible COVID-19 pandemic, Pete and his wife, Burson, launched the Virginia 30-Day Fund, a nonprofit whose sole mission is to save as many small businesses and Virginia jobs as possible by providing fully forgivable loans for small businesses in need. Pete, his wife Burson, his daughter Bee, and their dogs Willie and Waylon reside in Charlottesville, Virginia. Having never held office before, he is a conservative outsider looking to take on the dysfunction in Richmond, shake up the status quo, and bring new leadership to our Commonwealth. His campaign for governor has garnered national attention for his simple message: open our schools. Please welcome Pete Snyder. Now, I invite my co-host and dear friend, Srilekha Pillai, a passionate and courageous leader of Fairfax County Republicans, to open this conversation with her first question for Pete.
Vincent, thank you so much. And Pete Snyder, Mr. Snyder, thank you for being here, and surely excited to speak to an entrepreneur, innovator, and disruptor. And I just came to know you're a competitor too, so that's great to know that we have somebody as competitive as you in the race. So I am a working mom, and also I'm a president of PTA for one of the middle schools in Fairfax County. I get asked by concerned parents within the community about lack of plan to reopen the schools. I know in your videos you talked a lot about reopening the schools, but my question is going to be very specific. As you know, we closed schools in March of 2020, so here we are hitting 1 year mark. It's like first anniversary, right? I wish it was a celebration, but it's really not. And virtual platform in the first 1 month as a parent of FCPS, I can tell you that it was a failure to say the least. So closed schools are affecting all of us, but my empathy goes to Hispanics and Latino communities as they're in construction industry. They don't work in front of computers, so they're not able to stay home and help the children. So I guess if you are the governor, how are you going to make that this doesn't happen again for us? Also, I want to support a candidate that will make sure Virginia's education system will not be taken hostage by the teachers union and associations in the future. So tell us all that what your thoughts are about this, but more than anything, I want to get an assurance from you that Commonwealth will have a plan if this happens again in the future.
Sure, Lekha, thank you so much. And Vincent, thank you for having me on. As a longtime FCRC member, I'm thrilled with this program. I'm thrilled to be talking to the home crowd again. And what you are doing vis-a-vis this conversation, the recruitment of candidates, the overall organization of FCRC is just simply phenomenal. So I love what you're doing with our Commonwealth's largest unit in the RPV. So thank you for doing that. And, thank you for your leadership, Shaleka, in your community and with the schools. And, it has been a horrific experience for parents in Fairfax County, for students in Fairfax County, even for teachers in Fairfax County. They're held hostage in this as well. The vast majority of teachers actually want to be back in the classroom. They don't want to be locked out by teachers' unions and special interests. Oh, Pete, well, wait a minute, hang on a second. We don't have unions in Virginia, is that right? Sorry, it's associations that are controlled by national liberal special interests and unions. It's just been horrible, and we're losing a generation of students. We've seen in Fairfax County alone, Fs are up by over 86%. And I think you two were on top of this, but do you know what they did 3 weeks after Fs went up by 86%? They got rid of Fs. If you don't like the data, you just get rid of it. That's what cancel culture does. They canceled the Fs. We have teen suicide rates going through the roof, drug and alcohol abuse going through the roof, not to mention, and you feel it at home, Shaleka, the horrible bind that we're putting parents in. And disadvantaged families and disadvantaged students are falling further behind. So it is a horrible problem. But to your question, how do I make sure it will never happen again? I will guarantee that. And not only that, we are going to make sure that we remake our school boards. Governor Snyder is going to make sure, and this is a cultural issue for Republicans. And I got to tell you, it's our failure. It truly is. Hey, it's great for me that people are really fired up about this governor's race. And it's terrific, the attention and energy people put into presidential races. But unfortunately, when you get further and further down the ballot, people's enthusiasm seems to wane. And that's wrong. In the vast majority of counties in Virginia, at a low water mark, you have 48% of a county's budget go to schools, and a high water mark of nearly 68% of a county's budget goes just to the schools. It's in the 60s for Fairfax County, yet we Republicans cede to the liberals our public schools. We don't really play there. We just kind of give it up. And it's absolutely dead wrong. We need to recruit good conservative candidates. We need to put time, money, and energy into those races. I will give you all the help I possibly can as your next conservative governor of Virginia, but we need to take things back on a local level. As governor, we have a constitutional responsibility to educate our children. So I'm going to work, this isn't going to be a solo act. I know the sign behind me says Pete Snyder, but guess what? I'm going to be bringing a conservative majority to the House of Delegates with me, and we are going to pass laws that ensure that our schools always are open. 5 days a week, every week, with a teacher in every single classroom. That's the way it has to be. Sure, can we have a snow day? Of course, but we can't fall down on the job for an entire year. I refuse to let that happen. It is unconscionable that our leaders and our governor has allowed this to happen. And to go one further, I think you two are aware of this, but my campaign has actively raised money and put nearly $100,000 into helping to organize the Open Fairfax County Public Schools movement. And we are actively recalling obstruction of school board members. I think we have collected over 1,500 signatures in about 5 days. I think we have a 2,500 signature threshold that we're going to meet really, really quickly, and we're going to hold these people's feet to the fire. And that might not be the smartest thing politically for me to do, because one could argue and say, oh my gosh, Pete, every dollar and every effort that you're not putting into simply getting delegates in May is a wasted dollar. I'm sorry, folks. I am applying for the top leader in Virginia, and this fight is not in May. It's not in November. It is now. And that's why we are fighting and taking on these unions right now.
So, Pete, I'm glad you're talking about the school board, right? Because a lot of politicians of that are running for bigger races, such as governor, are kind of very focused on recruiting delegates. But I think you kind of got to the bottom of school board. In fact, this morning I was in a meeting with one of the school board member, and I asked a simple question saying that you are not willing to put up these religious holidays that most parents are asking for because Nova is a diverse community. But what is the reason that you have these early releases? I am sure there is a great reason, but that particular school board member had a hard time even articulating. I even went ahead and said, you have 7 professional holidays for teachers, or what is 9 professional holidays going to do versus 7 versus 5? And that particular school board member did not have a good answer. So what that tells me is that here we are putting out our 49% or whatever percent of our tax money, and 1.1 million people is what they're representing, and they don't have basic understanding, which kind of worries me. So I am glad you're willing to kind of get down to the bottom of school board members, because that's where the foundation lies. Thank you.
It absolutely is. And look, as governor of Virginia, sure, I control a lot of purse strings and have a lot of influence on the Commonwealth as a whole and our K through 12 system, and along with higher ed. But schools are controlled locally. So we need to do both. We need to have a strong, business-minded, conservative governor who is going to shake things up and drive home the reforms that we need. But we also need to get active in our communities and change culturally as Republicans and make sure that we are holding people accountable and we are having the best possible candidates and backing them to the hilt for school boards around the Commonwealth. Then and only then will we get the change that our children need and that we deserve.
Thank you so much, Steve, Pete, to listen to your passion for education. And when I started, thinking about getting into community and have kind of a public life from my technology, engineering related jobs, I understood the need for the school system to reform, and that's why I ran for school board in 2019 in Virginia. I understood a lot of the problems with the schools, and I really addressed them head on. And one thing that I noticed is the communities that can afford to provide good phonics and arithmetic education to children, their children are doing well. And the school board and the school system, without having any clue, they keep on talking about this achievement gap, but they are not able to do anything about it for decades. And they control this for decades. So I studied the history of Virginia, looking into this possibility of bringing in more phonics and arithmetic into elementary level so that we can have these children in the pipeline early on. And I understood that Governor George Allen has done some wonderful work in that regard, but nothing really got accomplished. But I'm just wondering, what exactly will be your prescriptions to address this burning issue of achievement gap in the low-income communities in the state?
Sure. And when I ran for, I'm not a career politician, never served an elective office, as you mentioned earlier, Vincent. I did run for lieutenant governor in 2013, and I came in number 2 after a 14-hour convention then. And, during that campaign, I campaigned very hard on making sure that we have a constitutional amendment in Virginia to allow for more charter schools and more choice. And I thought it was just the right thing to do. And I remember several times on the campaign trail, I would have other fellow travelers, fellow conservatives talk to me, and they'd give me advice on what I was doing and what I wasn't. But I remember many times people would say, hey, Pete, that whole education thing that you're talking about, it sounds good, but here's the thing. You're barking up the wrong tree. And I'd say, well, what do you mean? They said, well, Pete, we're Virginia. Our K through 12 are some of the best in the country. And Pete, you're a William and Mary product. We have William and Mary and UVA and GMU and JMU, et cetera, et cetera. Our higher ed's the best in America. So, people really don't want change, Pete. And I thought, I was totally taken aback and thought these people were crazy. But that was a general sentiment out there. But guess what, folks? The Democrats and the powers that be broke the system this past year. K through 12 broken. It's not even operating right now. Our system of higher ed, we have some of these institutions that are charging full freight for William & Mary and UVA and you name it, and providing a less than University of Phoenix experience. It's preposterous. It's ridiculous. And guess what? We're going to have the opportunity to overhaul the entire thing. So how am I going to deal with the quote unquote achievement gap? We are going to overhaul the entire system to how we spend dollars, to what comes from the state to localities, to how we are actually grading, how our teachers do, how our students perform. The entire system gets to be redone and overdone, and it needs reform. I mean, this is a clunky, dated agenda that has been driven our schools. We're focused oftentimes on the wrong things. We have all these crazy, 16, 19 projects that are seeping into our school system, trying to brainwash your kids, and it's just wrong. We are in the middle of a pandemic, and we're not focused on the basics. We can't even provide the basics in education for our children. So what I would do is I would do a major modernization and overhaul of both systems starting on day one.
No, thank you. That's great to hear that. And I would like to put this into your perspective when you're thinking about it. The Asian American communities that are doing great in terms of their kids' achievement, they supplement their education that they are not getting from the county schools. And that is the secret. And there, this phonics-based basic English and spellings and arithmetic, that is the key. And that is what we are missing in the current government schools, the public schools. So just wanted to put it out there.
Oh, that's a perfect point, Vince. It truly is. And I think it's, I want to make sure that our schools are providing everything that our students need. And yes, whether you're in business or in life or in sports, doing extra work and extra practice always pays off. But we need to make sure that, when I'm governor, that we're providing the basics and we're doing them well. We're not even doing that well. We're so focused on ridiculous things. I mean, can you believe that during a pandemic, many of our school districts wasted time and money renaming their schools as they're closed? They're not even open. This is just insanity. And Terry McAuliffe, who is just a power-hungry political retread, when he announced his campaign to try to be governor of Virginia again, he did it in front of a public school, and he had a gaggle of press out there. And then he talked, and they answered questions for nearly a half hour when he announced. Do you know how many people mentioned that the school was closed? Zero, none. He didn't even mention it was closed. It's preposterous. I believe, and you'll have a lot of candidates that you'll talk to throughout this campaign, and you have both been around a lot of candidates in your time. And during good times, you'll have a candidate that will tell you 50 different platitudes and make 200 campaign promises. And you know what? When times are rosy, you get the luxury of being able to do that. We are in a crisis. So in a crisis, you make the main thing the main thing. So for me, it's going to be number one, opening our schools and opening them immediately. 5 days a week, every week, with a teacher in every classroom. Then we will reform our schools. And I look forward to working with both of you and so many people that are teachers and educators and concerned parents to doing it properly. We're going to have a lot of fun and make a huge impact in the weeks and months ahead.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very good.
As a mom, that my kid is in middle school, as I mentioned, so this is quite enlightening to hear from you. Let's move on from education to our suburban women, right? I strongly believe, Pete, that the driving force of Blue Wave in Virginia is moderate suburban women and massively diverse millennials and Generation Z. So what I feel is these people have not been energized as much in the past, but they are now. And they have become our largest voting bloc in the electorate. And majority of them are increasingly starting to align themselves with Democratic Party. I'm a working mom, and I have a kid in college, and that's what those college kids are leaning towards. I hear them saying that as important as conservative values such as pro-life and Second Amendment are to them, it is not enough to sway their votes from Democratic Party. You're a young man yourself. What will be your message to these suburban women and massively divorced millennials and Generation Z to get them to vote Republican? What would you
Really, you are too kind on the young. I don't know how young I am, but I still have a heck of a lot of energy in me. And my message would be really simple. And I don't mean to be a broken record here, but I don't believe in pandering. I just don't. I'm a constitutional conservative. I'm unapologetically pro-life. I support and view our Second Amendment as sacred. I too believe you, Srileka, that those issues aren't going to sway suburban women. They're not going to sway Gen Z. But you know what will? Opening our schools. You know what will? Helping make sure that we save the heart of our community and the backbone of our economy in small business. This past year, the fundamentals of government simply broke down. They really did. We're not educating our students. We have small businesses dying every single day.
Yep.
There's not a single person in Virginia that doesn't know a small business owner that has gone under or had the worst year ever, or someone who has worked at a small business that has lost their job because of these egregious government shutdowns, or maybe you and your spouse have a neighborhood restaurant or coffee joint that you've loved for a long time that is no longer there because of Ralph Northam's government overreach and these ridiculous executive orders. So how would we appeal to folks? By fixing the very basic things. We have an opportunity this year in Northern Virginia, in Chesterfield and Henrico outside of the Richmond area, in Chesapeake and other areas in and around Virginia Beach, to reach people who haven't given Republicans the time of day in 10 years. Independents and lean Democrats who are just furious that they're having to cut back on a full-time job to be part-time so they can hover over their children who are being educated via Zoom, or moms who no longer can take consulting work because they have to be fully focused on making sure that their kids receive an education. We have put parents and students in an absolutely impossible situation, and I believe that by making sure that our schools are open and they're open immediately, we are going to appeal to folks who are just sick and tired of having the basics of government broken, and we will win this nomination, and we will win in November, and we'll bring a conservative majority along with us in the House.
I'm really glad to hear that you're not willing to compromise on the basic principles of Republican Party and our ideals, and thank you so much for being that strong leader who is not ready to compromise on those. If you compromise on those, we don't exist. And
yeah, that's just who I am. And I've been I've been active while I've been in the private sector my entire life. I've been an active member of our conservative movement for nearly 25 years. And, I don't think people want to vote for me if I'm finger in the wind or, just Johnny come lately. People accept that they may have differences with folks. My wife, heck, I think she only agrees with me maybe 40% of the time. But we have a wonderful relationship and wonderful marriage, and people can overlook differences with candidates and public officials, but you want to know the person's authentic. You want to know that they actually have a core value system, and you want to agree with the general direction of where they want to take things. And my thesis of where we are right now is really quite simple. Virginia is in the absolute worst mess that it's been in over 100 years. The people in charge have done next to nothing to help us out. They've had their opportunity. They haven't gotten it done. I would humbly like to believe that I have the right real world experience, the energy, ingenuity, enthusiasm, and hustle to pull us out of this mess and get Virginia back on the right track again, period. And that's it.
Yeah.
And that leads to another burning issue that I wanted to, I'm personally very, very much concerned about this issue. And I don't know, a lot of very senior Republican leaders tend to disagree with me on this. But election integrity. Millions of Americans believe that the last election was stolen from President Trump by using COVID as a cover to promote massive fraud-prone absentee voting. And I am one of them. I believe that if the election rules do not go back to the pre-COVID-19 situation, it will be extremely hard for Republicans to win some of the high voter fraud-prone districts in the country. So what specific issue related to the Democrats soon to deliver permanent changes to Virginia's election process worries you the most? And what new 2020 election processes that they are promoting concern you the most? And what are your plans to reverse the COVID-19 accommodations to go back to wherever that was before COVID, once COVID is over? So this is a burning issue personally for me and a lot of people that I know. So we would like to hear from you.
Vincent, thank you for asking that very important question. And I got to tell you, there is not a unit meeting or a meet and greet or a phone conversation with activists all around Virginia. It doesn't matter if you're grassroots conservatives or quote unquote establishment, this issue always comes up. And I'm going to give you the same answer I give everyone, which is, to me, it's wildly concerning. And let's just speak frankly. I will not be the next governor of Virginia. I will not be the next governor of Virginia if my campaign doesn't have the most elaborate, most extensive, most expensive ballot integrity and electoral security operation hardwired into the heart and fabric of my campaign. If I don't have that, I'm not going to win, period. And I am very pleased, this has been in the works. We've been working on this for about 4 weeks from the inception of the campaign. I'm very pleased to say to y'all, a longtime Fairfax resident and someone who is the co-chair of my campaign, our former Attorney General and former Deputy Director of Homeland Security, Ken Cuccinelli, is going to be overseeing our entire ballot integrity and electoral security operation for the Pete Snyder for Governor campaign. Could have hired or asked anyone in America who is better qualified than Ken. And, you know, we need to, just like I mentioned with schools, this is another cultural issue and problem for Republicans. It's true. We are complicit in our apathy on this issue. We are, because guess what? We conservatives, we play by the rules.
Yep.
And guess what? We expect other people to. And when folks don't, we pearl clutch and get all upset and, oh my gosh, fiddly dee, how does this happen? And you know what? It's our fault because we haven't been minding the store. I mean, you all have been in these same unit meetings, and I'm making wild, sweeping generalizations here, so take it a little bit with a grain of salt. But I've sat in countless FCRC meetings, and look, in August, you know this, we don't meet because it's summer, right? We don't meet in August, so we meet in September, and some candidates giving their spiel like I am, and when you're sitting there, a clipboard comes around with a piece of paper. And it has the 242, do I have that right? 242 precincts in Fairfax County. Mm-hmm. And there are signups for who wants to be inside or who wants to be outside for observing. And by the end of the meeting, about 20 of those 242 slots are filled. And then guess what? October rolls around and you're listening to another speaker, and the same clipboard with the same ratty piece of paper comes around. And because, you know what, elections are just around the corner, people are really enthused, and maybe instead of 20 names now, there are an extra 30 put on there. And in 2/3 of the precincts in Fairfax and in a lot of our larger units, guess what? We're not putting a goalie in the net. We're playing a game and we don't even have a goalie in the net. And it's our fault. And that needs to change. Culturally, for Republicans, we need to make sure that we have folks inside, outside, watching, we're going to make sure, through our efforts with Ken Cuccinelli for my campaign, that every single precinct has a lawyer and people know who to call immediately when they spot something foul going on, and that we are recording what's happening and making sure that, I'm going to be getting NFL-style scouting reports on every single registrar in Virginia. Because as a candidate, I want to know, are they Republican or are they Democrat? How do they lean? What do they do? What is their MO? What are their proclivities? I also want to know months in advance who's using paper ballots, who's using machines, are those machines connected to the internet? What is the process? And how can this be as transparent as possible? And if it's not, we better be on it in a minute and have our team of lawyers on it and have our communications people highlighting it to the rest of the world. Because if we don't do that, I'm not going to be governor, period. So that is candidate Snyder's answer. I will tell you, as someone who is applying for the CEO position of the Commonwealth of Virginia, when I'm governor, the fact that Democrats, independents, and conservatives all have an all-time low of belief in our electoral system. It's true, it's not just Republicans. Democrats have an all-time low of belief in our system. That is my problem when I'm governor. And you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to fix it, because we will have a conservative majority and we will make sure that Virginia is #1 in the nation in ballot integrity and electoral security laws in America. Virginia will lead America. And it's not that hard to do. In 2000, when Florida was a national joke for 2 months, and was a worldwide joke, guess what they did? The very next year, they marched down to Tallahassee and they made sure that they had the best possible laws that they could ever have. And we don't talk about election fraud or ridiculousness in Florida anymore. We just don't. So that we can do that in Virginia as well. And when I'm the next conservative governor, that's when I'm going to lead.
And that's actually great that you have that party experience, because a lot of people that we talk to, I have been, after this election voting irregularities and fraud became a news, I have appeared on many channels internationally with Indian TV, telling them that this is what is going on, and they are like, no, come on, man, you are living in America, that should have the best system in the world. And as an insider in the party, and I know about our lack of observers, just like you mentioned, and when I tell whatever things can happen here without proper ID, without proper signature, they're like, come on, are you serious? In America, is this possible? So I know, as a party operative in the county, you have seen how difficult it is to ensure integrity, and I'm thankful for that experience, so that you will be able to know.
Well, Vince, it's the work that y'all have done in the vineyards, right? Us all rolling up our sleeves and trying to help our party and our movement is beneficial. It helps us understand at the most granular level what is right and what is wrong. And look, I've been able to be in the private sector my entire life. That's where I've been able to ring the bell on Wall Street. I've been able to negotiate 9-figure deals. But guess what? I still spent time and energy trying to make sure that after Ken Cuccinelli was elected Attorney General, that we were battling to get Steve Hunt over the hump so that we can save that Fairfax County Senate seat. Unfortunately, we weren't able to, but I made sure that I was present and working with our grassroots, because guess what? You can do both if you believe and if you care. It's all about priorities in life. And, I have loved every second of working on our conservative movement and working with FCRC, because what we do and what you do matters. Our conservative movement matters.
So, Pete, I actually volunteer as vice chair for campaigns and elections in Fairfax County. And I think you hit the nail on the head. I'm an election officer. I can see how things can go wrong if you're really not monitoring it. So I am glad you have this grandeur plan ready to be executed when the time comes.
And I'm thrilled that I was able to recruit the single best person that could oversee that in Fairfax's homegrown Ken Cuccinelli.
And Pete, I know this is on Facebook Live. A lot of our viewers or folks are talking about Ken Cuccinelli, and they congratulate you for bringing him on board. I am going to actually skip my question because I want to ask Mr. McConville question. He is putting a question on Facebook Live, and I think it is a very valuable question for you to answer. Presents himself as a great business leader, able to bring businesses to Virginia through his outreach. What do you think we need to do here in Virginia to energize jobs creation, especially since you're an entrepreneur, bring new companies to Virginia, not just Nova, and helps existing businesses be more successful? And also this particular gentleman is thanking you for your leadership with Virginia 30-Day Fund. And I would like to say thanks to your wife. It looks like your wife was a leader or a co-partner with you in that 30-Day Fund project.
Well, Jay, that's former Fairfax County Republican Chairman Jay McConville, his wife Sue. Jay is a wonderful, wonderful man, great leader. He and his wife Sue stepped up immediately when Burst and I started the Virginia 30-Day Fund, and they pitched in and helped save businesses along with us. And you know, Jay just has a good heart, and he's a conservative's conservative. And so to his question about Terry McAuliffe and also job creation and what I'm going to do economically to help Virginia, you know, I think that there has been a big government style that's been in vogue when it comes to business development for states around the country. And I call it big whale hunting and corporate welfare. We've taken tens of millions of dollars or tax subsidies, and you fly around on private jets and you try to woo CEOs by basically paying them off to come to Virginia. And I just think that's wrong. Look, you know, am I happy we have Amazon? Sure, I'm happy we have Amazon. I mean, how can you, it was a nice win, but I think the fundamentals of how we get there are dead wrong and stuck in the past and a big government mentality. Instead of trying to woo Amazon, I want to grow the next Amazon right here in Virginia. So that's why I'm going to be focused on, 60% of our tax revenue, which comes from small business, and helping to repair the horrible damage that has been done by government to small business in Virginia. And I want to hit that point one more time and be very clear. The coronavirus kills people and puts them in the hospital. It is dangerous. It is. Now, look, for some people, they have no symptoms, or it's just a minor cold or a bad cold. But it's true, the coronavirus kills people and puts them in the hospital. But the coronavirus did not kill our economy in Virginia. Government did. It was a self-inflicted wound. And now that we're nearly a year into this mess, look at Governor Ron DeSantis of Florida, who the liberal woke media liked to lampoon early on in COVID. Oh my gosh, he's a moron. He's keeping the schools open. Oh my gosh, that DeSantis, how could he have their economy open? He's killing all of the senior citizens in Florida. And guess what? The woke crowd that likes to say that we don't like science or we ignore the data, they're ignoring the science and they're ignoring the data because there is no real discernible difference between states like Florida that have had their economy open and the death rates and contagion rates of other states like Virginia that have been horribly closed. But you know what? The big difference is our economy is absolutely in the tank. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to spend my efforts focused on using state government, the private sector where I come from, leveraging the private sector, and the nonprofit sector where I've spent really the past year of my life helping to build Virginia 30-Day Fund and the 30-Day Foundation to be one of the most successful COVID-related charities in America. We've helped save 2,600 small businesses all across the country. I'm going to leverage all three of those pillars to help our economy in Virginia and help repair small businesses. That's the right thing to do versus this ridiculous corporate welfare mentality. We need to make sure that Virginia is more competitive. We border North Carolina, We border Tennessee. Tennessee doesn't have a state income tax. You know what? We have to get closer to that in order to be competitive. So I believe by focusing on the fundamentals and making Virginia a much more competitive state and better state to do business is going to do a whole lot more for future generations in economic development than if I just run around in a G5 and throw dollars at people to try to bribe companies to come here. It's wrong, and it's against our values.
Absolutely. And when Sri Lanka talked about technology, I have a question that I have experienced in my voyages in Virginia recently. During COVID-19, when gatherings and get-togethers were kind of totally missing, my wife and I started driving Western Virginia to experience the warmth, the hospitality, and the beautiful wineries that we have in western part of the state. And during those trips, we noticed something. The internet connectivity in many rural areas needs significant improvement. When we are spending billions for the connectivity and the children's future in various foreign countries, in Virginia, a stone throw away from the nation's capital, many towns have no reliable internet. If you get elected in November, probably you will be the most technology savvy governor of Virginia since Thomas Jefferson in the 1700s. Have you ever thought about this as a major issue for Virginia? If yes, what solutions you have in mind?
Well, Vincent, that is a wonderfully insightful question. And I just, I am horrified by the fact that what year is it? It's 2021. And we're even having to have this conversation. I mean, seriously, you could put me in a time machine and have this conversation in 2004, and I think would be kind of a little late to the game on that. And it's just preposterous that our state government has shut down our schools and our localities have shut down the schools, and we're having students be educated over the internet, and we don't even have decent broadband in a lot of areas. Yep. So that is going to be a major priority for me, not only in the western part of the state and Southwest Virginia, but all across Virginia. And I'm going to take the same approach that I am with economic development, which is there are certain things that state government can do. There's certain ways that we can leverage the private sector. And there are tons of opportunities out there through the nonprofit sector that we can cobble all three together and try to solve this problem for the long haul, for the vast majority and as many communities and localities as we possibly can. This is ridiculous that it's 2021 and we're still even talking about broadband as an issue.
And thank you so much that it's a big priority for you. Really appreciate that.
Absolutely.
So Pete, one of the things that attracted me to Republican Party is since it is a party of law and order, and I really, really support our law enforcement officers, like all of us should be. So but as you know, the trust between communities and law enforcement has been eroding for a while. So I guess I'm very interested in knowing your plans to offensively counter the Virginia Progressive Prosecutors for Justice and their mission of progressive police reform statewide. How do you plan to rein the unbridled power that these attorneys are wielding by not following law as it is written in the books? What's your take on all the issues that just happened over the summer that really brought us on knees for, and I mean, I feel passionately about this subject, about our law enforcement officers.
Well, I feel passionately as well, and thank you for your concern and on this issue, and thank you for asking the question, because let's just be straight with each other. Crime is on the rise all around our Commonwealth, and it's on the rise because we have Commonwealth's attorneys who are no longer enforcing the law. They were hired and funded by liberal interests like George Soros. And you can see in Fairfax County and Arlington County alone, the damage that's happening from there. We also, and I talk to law enforcement officials all of the time, and 2020 has been the worst year that they have ever seen. They are disrespected by politicians and by citizens. The Democrats have been running on this defund the police mantra. They're disrespecting our officers. We even had, in the middle of a pandemic, we had extremists in Richmond making sure and trying to make it be not a felony to assault a police officer. It is ridiculous, the priorities that these extremists have had. So under Governor Snyder, guess what we're going to do? We're going to give the police and law enforcement officials the funding, training, equipment, and respect that they need and they deserve to keep our communities safe and to keep our neighborhoods safe, period. And, you know, I'm very passionate about the Second Amendment. And I got to tell you, if there was ever a poster child on why the Second Amendment is both necessary and sacred in America and in Virginia, it was last year, because the fundamentals of government fell down on the job. And my wife and I had a personal experience with it. We own a share of a small business located on Broad Street in Richmond. And on the second night of those riots this past summer, about 1 o'clock in the morning, 2 bricks came through our storefront window. And right after that, immediately after that, 4 woke kids burst through that glass into the showroom and stole and looted nearly every single piece of merchandise. And what was left over was covered in blood. And guess what? There wasn't a police officer in sight. And it wasn't their fault, because Terry McAuliffe's former political operative, who he got elected mayor of Richmond, Mayor Stoney told the police to stand down. And I got to tell you both, when I'm governor of Virginia, that will never happen on my watch. We will back our brave heroes, our men and women in blue, and we will give them the pay, the respect, the training, and the equipment they deserve to do their job and do it well, period.
I'm really glad you have that kind of a passion and you personally experienced it, because I remember during those things were going on, coming from a very liberal Indian American community, I was having some conversations with some folks, and they're like, you know, without having any clue what happens to a person who personally suffer from such, type of attacks. They're saying, you know, property damage, you can, you know, it can come back. Don't worry about it. Life is more important. I say, okay, then I am going to come to your house. You put aside some of your property that you're ready to get rid of, that in the front, and I'm going to burn it down. It's going to be okay with you. And these people, without really having any clue, until it personally affects them, they keep on advocating for this. And now I'm talking to a person here who got personally impacted, and I see that pain. And that is what we are missing on the liberal side. They are not able to share the loss and the property damage that these regular citizens have suffered under their watch without their action.
Well, and Vincent, you know, those people that you were talking to, are they psychic? Because, you know, when people are breaking into your house and smashing through windows and looting and burning, do you know that they're just going to be, you know, going after property and not harming you or your family? How do you know that? I mean, it's not about property. It's about protecting yourself and your family, your home and your business in case government falls down or in case government turns against us, period. That's it. That's why we have a Second Amendment. It's not for hunting. It's to make sure that we can protect ourselves and our families in times of need. You know, that's just it, period.
And, we consider these conversations that we have with candidates to bring up some of the issues that we may not have our candidates be aware of completely. So after becoming the outreach committee chair in Fairfax County, I started noticing something. You know, as you know, I'm an Indian American. I came from India with English. So that is one of the reasons why the Indian American community is doing extremely well in terms of their economic, status in the country, because they didn't have too much of hurdles to overcome. But when I started working with these other communities, especially immigrants from Africa, immigrants from South America, I noticed one thing. They're highly qualified. Some of them are very highly qualified people, but they are not able to use their skills or their education because of some inherent problems like, the lack of English or lack of, the knowledge of what resources are available. So we call it brain waste. I'm sure you have heard about it. have you thought about this? Have you have you are you considering this as an issue that we really need to get on top of it, so that we can tell these communities that we are serious about it? We are not just talking policy, but we are ready for solutions that affects your personal lives.
Sure, Vincent. And I'm so happy that you asked the question that way, because oftentimes people talk about things in a political sense of, hey, what are we going to do for minority outreach or something like that? You know what I want to do as governor, and what I am doing as a candidate, is working with communities regardless of where they're from. They're Virginians and they're here. How do we make their lives better? And government is not always the solution, meaning what we did with Virginia 30 Day, that wasn't providing government. That was actually friends and neighbors rolling up their sleeves and trying to perform triage to make sure that companies could live to fight another day after government shut them down. So I would absolutely, look forward to working with you to reach out to all communities to see how we can help them, whether it's through nonprofits, whether it's through the private sector, or in some cases where it's germane and appropriate, what we can do via state government to give people a lift and a boost ahead. That's it, and some communities are wired really, really well, and they lean, and friends and neighbors and families lean on each other, and others aren't so much. So I would look forward and welcome working with both of you to do as much as we possibly can. During COVID, I'm really proud of the work that Virginia 30 Day did in Fairfax County alone with the Fairfax County NAACP. And look, we know politically, we probably don't, the three of us don't agree with nearly a thing that Sean Perryman, who was their head for a long period of time, he's now running for lieutenant governor, believes in. And Sean would give me grief all the time for my conservative beliefs. But you know what? We were in the middle of a pandemic and Black-owned businesses were getting decimated. And we both wanted to help. So we partnered together. The Fairfax NAACP and the Virginia 30 Day Fund partnered together. We raised over $100,000 and helped save nearly, I think it was 40 plus, maybe even 50 small Black-owned businesses in Fairfax County, because people needed help and we both wanted to do it. And that's the type of leadership I'm going to bring together when I'm governor of Virginia. I don't care. Like, on our applications, we didn't ask you if you're a Republican or an independent or a Democrat. And when people gave $5 or $50,000, we didn't, have a interview with them on their political beliefs. We did not give a rip. It was just Virginians helping Virginians. That's what we need to do. You both know on the politics of it. Politics and elections are addition, not subtraction. So how do we make an impact in people's lives? And whether it's through the private sector, nonprofit, or state government, how can we help? That's it. Or how can we get the heck out of the way to improve their lives?
Thank
Pete,
you.
I'm very thankful. You speak like a businessman, and I have no doubt that you will govern like a businessman. And that's what I think our Commonwealth really needs at this point. And I would like to mention that this is Facebook Live, and I'm having some very good questions. So I'm happy to skip my question and actually go to one of the Facebook Live question. One of our good friend, Norma, who is actually an attorney by background from her home country, and she's very active in TJ Coalition, which is Thomas Jefferson Coalition. Her own children goes to TJ. One of the questions that she had is, according to McKinsey and Company, low-income students of color has lost about 3 months of math education due to issues related to remote learning during last academic year, as we all know. What is your plan to close this educational gap? I think you hit that point a bit when Vincent spoke, but I believe Norma's question is very specifically focused on math education.
Sure. Look, I think we need to, one, make sure our schools are actually open so we have our teachers working with all of our students, not just the disadvantaged ones, but we're going to need to do double time. And we're going to be asking a lot of our teachers who, again, I'm against the unions. I am pro-teacher. We need to make sure that teachers have ample ability and ample time to help lift up the most disadvantaged students out there, period. The gap that has been created over the past year is going to have horrific consequences. So what do we need to do? I know there's been discussions of summer school that the teachers unions are against. I think we need to augment in as many possible ways as we can, whether it be summer school, whether it be in supplementary after hours programming that we can provide students. And also, how do we make sure that people who are ahead, maybe we let them skip ahead, right? So we have smaller class sizes and allow people who have been getting ahead during this past years to advance and get to college early. I think that's just a smart way. All of this, holding people back just because they're the same age doesn't make any sense. We need to be wildly innovative with how we reform our education system. But, my view on education is the same it is on small business. Guess what? Government made this problem. It better fix it. And we better find the resources in state government, in our localities, and through the private sector and nonprofit to help augment and fill this gap.
And Peter, I think your solutions are so innovative. I think that's what it's called as thinking outside the box. When you're in politics for too long, you kind of tend to get focused on policy oriented, you lose the pragmatic aspect of life. And I think you bring in a fresh perspective, not being in the political inner circles. So it's just really nice to know that you have so many out of box thinking like a normal person would. So thank you.
Well, thank you for sharing that. And I just think, in no matter what job or CEO position I've had, whether I've been the lowest on the totem pole or on top, I've always tried to be intellectually curious. And also, I know I'm never the smartest guy in the room. And it doesn't matter to me. I want to make sure that we have and are getting smarter people around me and in state government or in whatever company I'm working on to bring ideas to the table. And it's my job to curate, augment those ideas, and make sure that we have a plan of attack so that we can show real results. So, that's just my approach to life. I don't pretend to have every answer to every question that involves the Commonwealth of Virginia. But guess what? I know the main ones that are problematic. And right now, it's our schools are closed. Our economy is in the tank because government broke it, and we need to fix small business. And we need to actually restore the rights of law-abiding citizens for a change. Our civil liberties and our constitutional rights have been absolutely shredded by government over the past year. And we need to correct that. We need to fix that. We need to rein government in. I'm actually going to be doing something that's counter to what the career politicians, the power-hungry folks like Terry McAuliffe do. I'm going to actually make the Virginia governorship less powerful and curtail the use of these horrific and ham-handed executive orders. It's wrong. And again, that might not be a popular thing, but I got to tell you, we need to show restraint in government. We need to get government out of the way. We have been, our governor has been acting as a tyrant and an autocrat over this past year, has trampled on every single person's rights that are watching right now, and have really, trampled on our religious liberties. I was told that I couldn't go to church on Christmas Eve because evidently the coronavirus gets a little funky after midnight. I mean, who knew? That's where the data and the science pointed. People are being told that they don't have the right to do the most American thing, which is to make a living and to decide who they're going to serve and how many people at what time and what business hours they're going to hold. This is just crazy. If you told me 2 years ago that this is what we'd be talking about, I would say, we're in some sort of Stephen King novel. It's nuts. We need to rein government in and get out of the way and restore the rights of law-abiding citizens. And that's what I'm going to do as the next conservative governor of Virginia.
Thank you. That's great. We are coming back to education again. And I know on Facebook also, we see a lot of messages that is in that direction. So I would like to introduce another issue to you that we are facing, the Asian community. You heard about the TJ issue, the Thomas Jefferson School for Science and Technology. They want to change everything there. And the current Department of Education Secretary, he is not happy that TJ is the #1 school in the country. You know why? Because 70% of the students are Asian American, and they don't consider Asian American are people of color anymore. They think, you know, we Asian Americans have passed that color test and now they are not colored. Their color has changed all of a sudden.
I'm so sorry that you've been so successful. I'm sorry, you're testing out of being a minority because you're so doggone successful, right? That's what government's saying, right?
Yep. And you know what they're replacing it with? The test, the merit-based test, they're replacing it with the geography-based and race-based admission process. Lottery. That's what they're going to have at TJ. It's outright, again, lack of complete common sense. There is no sense to it. Nobody can justify this. So I just wanted to, you know, bring your attention to this. And Asian Americans are really, really mad at this. And this is not a community that goes out and vote in big numbers. But I tell them all the time, this is enough of your time complaining to school board. Now you have to become politically active. That's the only solution. Which party, which leader, which candidate is going to be on your side? Look for that and then vote for that person. And I'm giving you this opportunity to appeal to the Asian American community. What exactly you think about meritocracy in Virginia institutions?
Sure, Vincent. And I'm very familiar with what's happening to Thomas Jefferson School. And I got to tell you, and just for those of you, the viewers out there that aren't, so let me just break this down and get it straight. We have the #1 high school in America, #1 with a bullet, for years and years and years and years. It's a product of Virginia. And we want to break it and change it because it's been too successful. Is that right? I mean, I'm understanding the question. And this is the problem. This is what's wrong with the woke left and the extremists out there. They are so hell-bent on turning Virginia into California and viewing the world only through race and gender and identity politics that they're not even focusing on what the end result is. Meaning, I don't know, I think it's a pretty great thing if you live in the Commonwealth of Virginia and you have the #1 school in the country, and to be very proud of that. I think it's a wonderful thing. So why aren't we protecting that? But unfortunately, and this is in the words of one Democratic state senator, said, if you look at the priorities of the General Assembly right now, whether it's through, you know, trying to legalize marijuana or get rid of balloons or styrofoam or trying to re-engineer Thomas Jefferson School, you wouldn't know that we're in the middle of a pandemic. I mean, the priorities are absolutely insane. So Vincent, I want to do something that's probably not in my best interest, because you said, Pete, how are you going to appeal to the Indian American community? I would love to get as much possible support from the Indian community as I could. Okay, let's be straight. But you know what? I don't care if I get a single vote there, because guess what? No matter what, I will protect and preserve the Thomas Jefferson School when I'm governor of Virginia. I will make sure that we get rid of these ridiculous policies. And if I don't get a single endorsement or a single vote from the Indian American community, that is fine. I'm going to do this because it's the right thing to do for Virginia, period. That's it. Now, look, I would love to have as much support. As we said, it's about addition, not subtraction. But these things are just core principles for me. It's not about appealing to any one voting demographic. It's the right thing to do. And we are going to preserve and protect Thomas Jefferson School from the lunacy of the left. And that's really why I fundamentally believe we are going to win this nomination. And I'm not saying this in a cocky way. It's just we are building the broadest and deepest coalition of Republicans from every single side of our party. We're having Hatfields and McCoys working together, and establishment and grassroots. So I feel confident that we're going to win this nomination, but much more so, we're going to win in November, and we're going to bring a conservative majority along with us, because on issues like this, whether it's Thomas Jefferson and the social engineering that is happening there, or it's Ralph Northam's inability to get a vaccine out to people who want it now that we have it available, and instead he's doing the same kind of identity politics putting prisoners ahead of senior citizens. And it's just egregious. And our schools aren't open. Our economy's still in the tank, and people are tired and they've had enough. They're angry. This is not just Republicans. These are independents and lean Democrats. And shoot, I'm even seeing some quote unquote self-identified progressives who feel the same way. We are going to be able to get more support in Fairfax County and in Indian American communities, to Korean American communities, to the Black community, to the Latino community, all across Virginia. We are going to get a higher voting percent in all those communities and in Northern Virginia because we're right on the issues, and people simply have had enough with the extremist policies of the Northam McAuliffe 8 years that we've had to endure, and they don't want another 4.
That's a terrific, very passionate commitment on your side, and thank you so much. It is the right thing to do for Virginia.
And also, Pete, you made a whole lot of parents there across the board. Doesn't matter whether they're Korean Americans or Chinese Americans or African American. You made a whole lot of parents very happy right there by saying that you support the Thomas Jefferson initiative. It's just a matter of principle. It's like, do you want meritocracy that really brought America to this level? Or do you want to dumb down the curriculum is the question.
Well, and Shrulika, it's just, I mean, again, to me, this is just plain common sense. In me, you will have a governor who sticks up for parents and sticks up for teachers and sticks up for students, but does not stick up for special interest unions, period. That's it. It's a very easy choice. I can't believe, that we can't find a single Democrat. You can't find Terry McAuliffe talking about opening our schools at all, or Jennifer McClellan, or the communist that's running for governor, or Jennifer Carroll Foy, or even Ralph Northam. He will never take on the Teachers Association, union, at all, because they're afraid. They're not going to do that before their June 6th primary. Are you kidding me? You're not. So the can's going to be kicked down the road, and we're going to have a crisis in mid-August of getting our schools open, if we even get them open then, and our kids are going to fall further and further behind, and our teachers are going to be more and more disheartened. No teacher does that. It wants to sign up to be an IT administrator. They want to be in the classroom. They want to be doing what they love, which is teaching kids in our next generation. And I will give them all the support they can ever need or require or want when I'm governor of Virginia.
Pete, thank you for that support. My background is healthcare. I'm a healthcare professional by background. I see COVID patients. Probably 35% of my caseload is COVID on any given day, and my team's caseload. So we are out there, right there. And a lack of healthcare in Virginia is a real thing. I know we pride on saying that we have the best healthcare system in the country or in the world, and I don't disagree with that at all. But for someone that takes care of patients on a daily basis, there is lack of coverage among low-income citizens in Virginia. I call it as King Ralph. When King Ralph, a pediatrician and physician, took over the office, I was positive, I was hopeful that he would do something more about this lack of health care. But it looks like Democrats seems to score points here by typical big government solutions, such as Medicaid expansion. But that's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for some real solutions. What do you think about lack of healthcare among low-income citizens? I feel very empathetic about it. What do you think as a small business owner?
Sure, I think it's an absolute travesty, and I think it's not just Ralph Northam, but I think it's other Republicans who just sold out to big government as a solution. And I'm sorry, if let's taking a giant step back because I'm in the private sector. What are we talking about here? I think what we're talking about is how do we get as many Virginians as possible to have the best quality healthcare as possible. And the solution oftentimes is not going to be government. The best thing I can do as governor to get as many Virginians quality healthcare as possible is to repair our economy. A job is the best possible way you can get much better quality healthcare. So that's why I'm going to spend so much time restoring and repairing the backbone of our economy and the heartbeat of our community, which is small business. That is the best possible healthcare program that you could ever have in the history of the world. It's a job.
Yep.
Now,
Job
Pete,
creation
I want to bring your attention to this very divisive issue in Virginia Republican circles, the convention versus primary thing. And I know now I'm on the SEC, and I sit here and I sometimes
wait a minute. You're responsible, Vincent. You're. I mean, I just like as a candidate, I'm just hoping that this white smoke comes from the Vatican of the state central at some point in time, and just let us know what we need to do. And
when I sit there, I sometimes think we sit there for hours and hours. We do this, this with candidates, 60 minutes to 75 minutes type of a conversation like this. We get to see a lot of real issues we talk about and real solutions. We sit hours and hours in this SEC meeting, worrying about this convention versus primary thing and fighting over it and dividing the party again and again and again. I have my preferences, of course, but at the same time, I think that should not be a major reason for Republicans to fight like hell, like we do right now. So I know you have been open to whatever it happens, whatever the party provide you. I am ready for that, and I really appreciate that openness. So now convention is going to be the way. So tell me how and where you are with your preparations for the convention, your delegation.
Sure. And look, I'll even kind of go in a place where you skirt it around a little bit. But like, look, for, I don't know, 10, 12 years that I've been, showing up to state central meetings or helping in various ways in the party. I've been a member of state central when I was finance chair of the party. Look, I've largely stayed out of the Hatfield-McCoy primary convention stuff. And because I kind of don't care. I'm probably more, most people say, oh, Pete, you're a primary guy, you do better in those things. And that may be true. I had no choice when I ran in 2013. They had already picked that it was going to be a convention. So I didn't have a choice in it. And you know what? I figured it out. And I didn't win, but we did pretty well for a newcomer. And it was a perfectly fine, sometimes mind-boggling experience for 14 hours. But that's a long-winded way of saying I kind of haven't cared. Now I do. And it's really, after the first decision by State Central of, hey, look, this is going to be a convention, we pivoted our entire campaign to focus on a convention or some form of a convention. And the business model between a primary and a convention are two very, very different business models. You hire different people, you spend your time doing different things. And, as I've said before, look, I just want to play the game. I just want to play, kind of like so many tens of thousands of Virginia high school student athletes who just want to get back on the field and play. Tell me where the playing field is. Tell me the rules, make sure they're clear and transparent, and give me enough time to prepare, and we'll do anything. We really, and we'll win. I don't care what method. We'll end up winning, and that's not cocky. It's just we've been preparing. So, but the problem is, after that decision, we've been months into this preparation. We could pivot because of the resources we have and staff. It will be much harder for our down ballot races who have maybe budgets of only $1 million or under $1 million. It'll have a devastating effect on them. So I do believe, and I'm very I'm vocal about it, that we need to and should not reverse ourselves and stay in some sort of a convention. And let's just play the game. So I hope, Vincent, because you control everything, and I know you're responsible for everything here, just show us the field, tell me the rules, and let's roll, okay?
That's it. I really like that. That's the way a businessman thinks. Maybe I'm a businessman. That's why I'm sitting there and thinking, whatever way it is, go ahead, make a decision and then go on.
And we'll do it with a smile on our face too. It's like, I'm running for governor. I'm not running against any of these folks. Sure, will there be competition? Absolutely. Sure, are people going to try to differentiate themselves? Absolutely. But we have a wonderful party that has the right belief system, and we have an unbelievable opportunity to lead the nation and lead our entire Republican Party well beyond Virginia to show them the path back and leading. And we're going to do that when we win the nomination and when we beat Terry McAuliffe or whoever they throw up against us in November. Virginia is going to lead the nation and have our great American comeback. with Virginia front and center.
So, Mr. Snyder, I think you mentioned this couple of times that you're not trying to be cocky. You're not coming across as cocky at all. You're coming across as extremely confident, which is very good for the party. We really need our leaders to show that confidence and not be apologetic at all. So let me thank you. I know you have another radio show after this. Thank you so much for joining in this especially important conversation with me and Vincent. I enjoyed being with you and hearing you out. I hope you are too. And I particularly enjoyed your out-of-the-box innovative thinking and being very candid and strong on your principles, because you don't want to not stand on your principle. I wish you nothing but the best in the upcoming elections. And we are rooting for you. Let me put it that way.
Well, Srilekha, thank you so much. And the only thing that I would change or edit is never call me Mr. Snyder. I'm Pete and I'll always be Pete. So please just call me Pete. And I want to thank both of you and FCRC for this incredible experience. You know, I've given I don't know, 1,000,001 interviews or press things since announcing in January. And this has been, I think, and I'm not just trying to butter you all up. These have been the most insightful questions, the most relaxed, interesting. You know, you two are intellectually curious people, and it shows. So thank you for providing this opportunity for me. I would humbly ask the two of you, and you don't have to answer me here, and all of your viewers, for the opportunity for y'all to be a delegate for me. I want to earn the right for your support. I don't expect by answering your questions here that suddenly you're wowed by me and, oh my gosh, Pete, I'm with you. I hope you do that, but I don't expect that. I want to earn the right for your support. So I hope I do that. To everyone in the audience, the same. I hope to be able to earn your support to be a delegate for me in May. If I'm applying for the top spot, I want to be accountable and available. So I'm going to give you all my cell phone number. Vincent, I know you have my cell phone number, but I'll give it to you, Srilekha, and to your viewers out there. It's 703-399-9548. 703-399-9548. It's not a burner phone or a fake campaign thing. It's my personal cell phone. Give me a holler, send me a text. Thank you for this incredible opportunity. Together, all of us are going to help lead the charge, and we're going to get Virginia leading the nation again. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Pete. Really appreciate this energy and the passion that we feel, and that is terrific. I really appreciate you coming on board with us, and appearing and answering all our questions. Thank you so much. I would really appreciate if you can share this interview. It's on Facebook Live, on FCRC, on your Twitter feeds and all that. Hundreds have seen it already, and thousands will see it in the next few days. So please feel free to share this.
We will blast away. Absolutely. Y'all have a great night, and look forward to seeing y'all really, really soon.
Thank you.
Just for our viewers, thank you for watching. The Fairfax GOP is now collecting donations to purchase meals for our National Guard troops. They're stationed in Washington, D.C., as you all know. If you would like to join our effort and contribute financially, please visit fairfaxgop.org. To drop off donations of individually wrapped snacks, our office will be open Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. The deadline for these donations is 2/28, which is February 28th, and the food will be delivered to our troops on March 7th. Thank you for your support to our troops, and thank you for watching.
Thank you.
Give me a call later on. We want to donate. The Snyder family wants to help and donate. So let's talk offline and we'll get that done. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.